So I accidentally created oral insulin. And now, what do I do with it? Let me give you a little bit of background on how we got here. A couple of videos back, I detailed how using soy isoflavones, specifically genistein, could lower your heart rate and inflammation and blood pressure when using certain substances. Now, that said, that was my purpose right off the bat, was to just get my heart rate and my blood pressure lowered down a little bit to a healthier level at certain times of the day. And it worked. I took everything down about 10 points. 10 beats per minute, 10 points off of diastolic, 10 points off of systolic. But after I made that video, I decided to megadose it and see what would happen. Here's what happened. After about 45 minutes to an hour, my blood sugar just plummeted. And I'm telling you, I know the signs. I've used Humulin and Humalog and Humulin R before pre-workout, somewhere in the neighborhood of anywhere from 4 to 10 IUs. And this was very familiar. All the signs of low blood sugar were there. I decided to look into it. And yeah, it's a thing. Soy isoflavones, like a lot of these other organic products that I've been working with, have very low oral bioavailability. So I thought, why not try pretty much the same basic formula that I use to get my sublingual ecdy into the system. I'll try that with a very small dose of soy isoflavones, complexed and with permeation enhancers and in a sublingual delivery. Let's see how it goes. So I did my math, and instead of taking 3 grams like I did the night before, I whipped up a batch and I took 12 milligrams mixed with 10 milligrams of sodium caprate and my complex and hydroxypropyl beta cyclodextrin, and I did a sublingual dose of that, and it was immediate. As soon as I felt that start getting into my system, my blood sugar just plummeted. That told me all I needed to know. I fought to keep my blood sugar back up. A dose that I did that night, it really felt like 10 plus IU, maybe 12 IU of Humulin or Humalog. So I had to find out, okay. And this time I will say this, I didn't lose my pump. I was able to maintain vascularity and stuff once I got some carbohydrates in my system. But the curious thing was, why did this blood sugar drop so strongly? So I began to research it a little bit, and yeah, it's a thing. This is the role of isoflavones in type 2 diabetes prevention and treatment, a narrative review. And there's a handful of studies on this. If you look around, you can search Google Scholar or even just Google for genistein or soy isoflavones and lowered blood sugar, and you'll see some studies on this. I'm going to go down to a chart that helps lay out the mechanisms of action, because it is complicated, and we're not going to read this whole thing. I'll have the link to the article. But it acts on estrogen receptor alpha, estrogen receptor beta, PPAR receptors. It works on cyclic AMP and increases SIRT1s, can either increase or decrease DNA methylation. And what they found is in live animal studies that actually increased methylation, which is something I experienced too. When I would take this very concentrated dose, after my blood sugar would drop a little and things like that, I would get cramps in my neck. And that's usually a sign to me that, well, my electrolytes are off slightly, but also just overall muscle tightness, to me, is often a sign of I'm undermethylated. I don't have enough raw material. So as soon as I started to take a teaspoon of trimethylglycine, has 3 methyl donors, a nice spoonful of that, good to go after about 20 minutes. So, but yeah, there's all kinds of paths of signaling. And what I've discovered through looking through this as, well, like right here, the pancreatic islets. These are, okay, even though impaired glucose tolerance occurs when the pancreas loses from 60 to 85% of the total insulin secretory capacity, the onset of beta cell failure occurs earlier. So in other words, by the time you notice insulin resistance and lack of efficiency in your pancreatic system, you've probably had a lot of beta cell failure before that. The decrease in insulin secretion is caused by the dysfunction of beta cells and a progressive decrease in their number. So what this goes on to describe is how these isoflavones actually stave off beta cell failure and beta cell death in the pancreas and kind of regenerate those islets. Maintaining an adequate beta cell mass by inhibiting beta cell death represents a possible strategy of prevention and treatment of diabetes. Genistein can
prevent the flow of inflammatory cytokines-mediated reduction of glucose-stimulated insulin secretion.
Oh my land, that's a mouthful. And stimulates proliferation in rat insulinoma cells. Now, I'm going to try to summarize this in a way that makes sense to me, makes sense to most viewers. There's a lot going on. The liver gets cleaned out. Go through this study. I'm not just pulling this out of the air. The liver gets cleaned out. The sensitivity increases in the liver first. The beta cells get protected and become healthier and able to secrete more insulin. And I think that's probably what's happening right off the bat, is that activation and stimulation of those beta cells right off the bat. But for whatever reason, there is a huge pulse as soon as I take that sublingual dose. And the pumps at the gym, you know the way your body works. If you've ever tried insulin pre-workout and you've got enough carbs in your system, you get that ultra pumped full, blood full look. It acts just as if I had taken 10 to 12 units of insulin. And with that, what I want to say is it's not insulin. It's just activating and stimulating those pathways, kind of like what a growth hormone releasing peptide, or what is it, MK677 might do for growth hormone. So this is like the insulin side of it. So very interesting stuff. Wanted to share it. I'll keep on researching it. If anybody has any interest in this and feels that they can work with it safely, because all the same precautions have to be taken, feels like I've just took Humalog and I just keep some carbs on hand, you know, make sure I've got some solid food in my belly about an hour, half an hour before that. If anybody has any questions, please hit me up in the comments. Take a look through this study yourself, see what you think about it, and yeah, enlighten me if there's something I'm really misunderstanding or missing.